Why do we stand wrong is the question I'm going to answer today. And I'm going to use an example of a patient I just had. So her posture type is what I call the cheerleader. It's not that she's a cheerleader, it's just one of two posture types I see a lot. And we're doing a specific move on her. It's called an anterior. And I got this block here. I kind of like you're going down a slide. You hug up and we round the person. And we lay them on their back. We get a big movement here, and it's kind of like, well, why are we doing that, right? Isn't that our problem, is we're always flexed? Why would we want to flex somebody more to get movement out of them? What's wrong there? What's wrong with our thinking of the posture? So the cheerleader posture is this athletic hip. So it's kind of dominant, very strong. It's anteriorly tilted, quad dominant, and that kind of shoves the head forward. But the cheerleader, she wants to be pretty. Like most of us, we realize, yeah, my head probably shouldn't be forward, I shouldn't be rounded. So we kind of auto-correct by arching, right? Hopefully you can see me. So I'm too tilted here, and then I hyperextend. So what does this do to this area? This area is your thoracolumbar fascia. You got a big sheath of fascia, actually got a couple different layers. The lats insert into it, all these tendons insert, create a big sling that crosses over your sacrum, joined with your glute max and your hamstrings, a big X, if you will, that we've now taken and we've shrunk. So it's actually compressing our spine to do this. Maybe I got my head in a good position, but I've also taken my neck curve, a nice C shape, and I've flattened it out. I've created too much curve in the lower back. I'm not addressing the anterior pelvic tilt. I'm not fixing the posture. I'm actually making it worse. So people start getting headaches, or rhomboids, because they're squeezing the shoulder blades together. They're not actually opening up the shoulder, right? That's the problem. We're not actually externally rotating the shoulder. We're just squeezing. So the rhomboids are just angry because they're pulling the blades back and the shoulder's still really internally rotated. So we have all these tight muscles and they're just breathing in this position, because how can you get a good diaphragmatic breath here, right? It's gonna, I can't pull that belly in. The only way to pull that belly in is, oh, I gotta go into flexion. That's why that adjustment works. It took me years to figure it out. We just did it because they lay on the table and I'm breaking my hands. I can't get it to move until I bring them into flexion. This tells us a lot about posture and muscular balance, that thoracolumbar fascia. Everything that's connected to it is pulled so short and tight. When we start looking at tendons and pathology there, they go into this reactive stage where it hurts because there's little tears, if you will, in the tendon. And it gets better, maybe it goes back to normal, or it goes away. And then you start developing other problems elsewhere. You get an x-ray and you have degenerated discs in your spine, facets, and you're like, I barely had back pain. And now actually I don't have any back pain now, since it's gone to that degenerative stage where the nerve to where it was hurting is dead. Why is that bad? You're like, no, you know, they do that all the time. They fry nerves so you don't feel pain anymore. Well, it's bad because not only pain nerves, but mechanoreception, your tendon spring-like capacity. Like if we just cut your Achilles, well, maybe not cut your Achilles tendon, but if we had the same spots in your Achilles tendon, you wouldn't be able to bounce around as well and it wouldn't react well to motion. It's the same in the low back. The tendon and the muscles aren't doing their job, so it starts to take the hit. The joints of the spine. Joints of the spine, a lot of mechanoreception, don't have a lot of nosis check, and there is some pain there, but you might not feel too much, and that's why it's good to come to the fix, get checked out. It's not about me giving you this magical adjustment either. That's not what I'm here about. Showing you an idea, that'll help, right? It's gonna remove restriction, but if we don't change the movement patterns that are causing that, you might walk out the door and that muscle's gonna be like, yeah, we're just gonna pull you right back to where it was, right? So there's a couple of exercises that can help. Now, I'm currently getting certified for foundation training. Otherwise, I would say do foundation training, but I don't want to steal their intellectual property, but definitely go to foundationtraining.com and work through the baseline program, because a lot of their breathing techniques, their founder exercise is going to take that thoracolumbar fascia, everything connected to it, the erectors, and stretch it out. And anytime you're stretching something out like that actively, you're engaging what's weak, the anterior chain, right? Here, the deep psoas muscle. So that psoas is going to help combat that hyperextension by engaging, stabilizing the lumbopelvic region. Deadlift. So I will teach the deadlift, and then I'll teach you how to use my version of the pso right here. But if you have a pso right at home, there's lots of different versions. If you want to make one out of a block of wood, save a few dollars, definitely good. I have it narrow here just because psoas converges, attached to the diaphragm, so that works well to get it here. Wider, more iliacus region, sometimes even QL if I can get deep enough for it. But let's actually move, because we don't want to dig into a muscle that's cold, right? You know, we want to warm up the body first. A lot of people they use this so right and they just like stop. You know, it really leaves the back pain and they just go on their way. But even that, we're going to teach you some breathing exercises while on it to help engage while we relax. Not just getting out of pain, but actually being therapeutic about it, bringing balance. But deadlift, I got a really light weight here. Barbell is probably optimal and you could do single leg and all that, but let's just really work on the hinge. So even if I want to get this weight down and I didn't think about it, my back would want to bend, right? I want to bend right from here. Even if I was using the adjustment before that I was demonstrating, a lot of people, I get them in this position, I almost got to like lift up on their elbows, lengthen that low back out, because if I just lay them down, they're compressed and I can't get this area, that lower thoracic, to really open up, because that's where most of that extension comes from, depends on the person. I have to get them here, lengthen, then I have to pull the mid back. It's like you're doing a crunch like at your diaphragm level. And if you try that right now, like without thinking, like, okay, that was easy, versus lengthening, then adding a little bit of flexion, you're like, oh, that's hard. I can barely go there because all those joints, all those muscles are really wanting it to be an extension. So you've added length, so I have to do that manually to a person. I have to lengthen them, then I kind of have to flex them, and it's really this weird process, and a lot of times they'll want to flop out of it. Like, no, okay, take a big breath, slowly release it. You probably had me work on you before, maybe doing this position. Sometimes it doesn't go. Sometimes it's not so much that I've failed, it's you getting the breath work down to help you. Yeah, I just blamed you. There we go. So let's run through that deadlift. We really want to root into the ground. My problem is always, and I am very anterior pelvic tilt, is I want to be in the heels, right? Someone who is more posterior pelvic tilt, they want to be more in the toes. It's not that one is bad over the other, you want it to balance, right? So it's a heel. Sometimes I like to lift the toes, grip the balls of the feet, then come down. That way, if I'm going down, I'm not automatically lifting the toes. I'm going to keep that, you know, I'm dug into the mat. All right, and that's going to help me connect all these muscles right into the hip. It's going to take for a powerful hip hinge, moving into the squat for when we deadlift. So I'm taking a big expansive breath, right? Because I'm actually right here, I'm pulling into that, engaging that psoas, putting some stretch on that thoracolumbar fascia. Sorry, I almost did the measuring stick hands. Won't do it. And I'm going to hinge down, finding the hamstring tension, finding the engagement, find that weight, then add my little squat, still pressing into the ground with the toes, driving up. So just put that muscle in a stretch position, and then I used it. That's eccentric contraction, which is good. It changes everything. Gaze up here, always looking ahead. Don't be down, don't be hyperextended either. You want to think of, I've lengthened my neck, it's just following along, right? At this point, it has no neck motion, has no flexion extension. I'm using those hips, rooted into the ground, deadlifts, with your breathing, right? Inhaling. A lot of people like to flop here and then you lost all your engagement. So you notice you're always building on that tension. Like I'm finding tension here, I'm adding to the tension. I shouldn't be as I come back when I lost the tension. You're pulling, you're pushing into the tension, all the way down, keeping the tension. Now you're moving under tension, under load, with a load, changes things. So doing some deadlifts, warming up your body, then we'll think about using a so right. And we'll do some breathing work here. All right, so I got the narrow side up, not on the ribs, but right below it. And we'll do some breathing here. Hello. You might notice your first time doing this, don't go too long. You're easing into it. I'm just gonna sink, let my fingers crawl. Each breath I'm gonna think about almost rounding my back. My shoulder blades are moving out of the way. I'm filling up the back of my rib cage there. Sinking down. So I'm adding some flexion. right where most of us are too extended, right? I'm actually trying to sink down in there. Breathing here. So you can get that long, maybe 7-second inhale. A lot of people are like, let it all go. You know, you want to inhale and then slowly sink into it. When you do that slow breath, that's when you're gonna hit that muscle. Oh yeah. And that's gonna help you get deeper into that psoas, because you gotta go through a lot of intestines, right, to get to that muscle that sits on either side of your lumbar spine. Flip this guy the other way. I think with my angle it was maybe 15 degrees or 10 degrees here if you want to make this. Otherwise, pretty simple, just get a grinder, sand it down. Now lower iliacus. So kind of right where the pelvis is. You'll find those balls of muscle that help anchor the hips, right? You can even add a little bit of a squeeze. Oh, that was a foundation training term, sorry. Adduction, squeezing the thighs towards each other. So most of our hips are turned out, especially if you're posterior pelvic tilt. Sinking in, walking those hands. Turning this into a breathing exercise. Sound like you're a dolphin and you're filling up that arch in your back, that dorsal fin. We all have a dorsal fin, kind of. They're just really tiny spinous processes. So if you have a psoas right, you're just not laying on it, suffering. I want you to breathe, get deeper. That breath that is expanding the rib cage, you're strengthening a lot of muscles there. You're gonna really make some big changes. Now, speaking of anterior, and your psoas right can't do this, but Dr. Klein's magical device can, is we can actually do a bit of an anterior right here on this guy. Let's see if we can get some movement today. Give me a good angle. If I knock my mic out, I'm sorry, but right there, right about there is that tight thoracolumbar fascia kind of ends and it turns into your lats and your spinal erectors that go all the way up to the skull, resting in there, already getting some movement. What I'm just gonna do is first extend and I'm gonna breathe, pull that belly in really tight, get a little flexion. Let's go one more. Stretching all that tightness out. Actually feeling really good today. We'll go one more spot, bring that into flexion. A little bit lower shoulder blades. So you can kind of do the same thing with the foam roll. I like this because the spine sinks down in there, massages those tight muscles. Not about getting a huge pop, I didn't that time, which might be a good thing, might mean I'm actually decompressed. I did some foundation training right before this. Normally, especially before I found foundation training, I had a foam roller and I would be like, you know, pop, in between every patient. It was that bad. And I was that dumb just to keep doing it. So I'm like, oh, it hurts and it feels so good for 5 seconds. And just another patient, I feel all compressed again because my posture was so extended. So one day, just doing the foam roller, I'm like, I know it helps. I'm doing something right by doing this. It's just not lasting, which means because there's a tight muscle, there's a weak muscle. It's as simple as that. As soon as I made that connection, which is a very simple connection, it took me like 3 years, and I had probably like 5 years of chronic pain at that point to put it together. Because no one told me, right? I figured somebody would tell me the things you got to figure out on your own. And I'm like, okay, well, what's weak, right? And then I went on a long journey to figure out what's weak, and then I figured out it had a lot to do with breathing. So that's what's wrong with why we stand. If someone's telling you to have better posture, stop extending. Try some foundation training. You have to train to have better posture. You have to train to breathe better. You have to train to walk better. We might do a video on walking. not today, but another day, because there's a lot to do with walking too. It's like I can't just teach you how to walk. I give you ideas of why we walk wrong, but ultimately it's training to do better. So kettlebell stuff is actually good. It's a lot of hip hinging, deadlifts, good stuff. Check out the baseline on foundation training. I think that'll really help you engage, start breathing. Then you're naturally going to do it when you're not thinking about it. When you're hiking or biking or whatever you love to do, you're naturally going to be more decompressed. Like even swimming, we're compressed, right? Because there's no resistance. So you actually have to be very active when you swim. So a lot of swimmers think it's so great for them because it's zero gravity. Well, it's not. It is zero gravity. But you need to be as decompressed. You actually have to decompress more and be very active when you swim. Otherwise, the spine is very, very compressed. So it's therapeutic in some ways, you know, because you're not lifting weight, but we have weight. We have a lot of weight. You're carrying around. I'm carrying around 180 pounds all day long. So that's a lot of weight I have to, you know, lift up against. If I'm constantly resting on the joints, muscles get imbalanced, joints get angry, degeneration happens. If I'm using my muscles feel stronger. Joints happy. Nervous system happy. Prevents disease. And it's free, right? All right, I'll shut up. Hopefully that helps. The idea of the adjustment there was just in my mind, so I thought I'd share it with you, that anterior move. But if you'd like an anterior, come to nepafix.com and book an appointment with me, and we'll talk about all this foundation training stuff, kettlebell stuff, get you better, get you out of pain.